Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're unpacking a really insightful personal analogy. It explores how we deal with social interactions, how we manage our own complex identities, especially when the world often just wants the surface-level stuff. Our mission here is to pull out the key insights from this vivid metaphor, looking at social dynamics, trust, which is huge in how we actually present ourselves versus maybe what's going on inside. At the heart of it is this idea of a restaurant, but it's got this hidden library in the basement. It's used in the source to describe a personal coping mechanism for social life. It's such a striking image, isn't it? Really captures that tension between, the quick, superficial chat and wanting something deeper.
It absolutely does. And what's fascinating isn't just that it's a clever analogy. It's actually laying out a whole detailed system for navigating social interactions. It shows how someone tries to manage expectations and maybe most importantly, how to protect your real value in a world that often prefers the quick bite over the full meal, so to speak.
Yeah, protecting your value. And this idea of different roles we play, the source calls them subpersonalities, or like an inner staff. That's really interesting. Can you walk us through who these characters are?
Sure. Think of it like the front of house team at this restaurant. The first person most people meet is Kelly. She's the host. Kelly's job is to be polite, warm, very approachable. She handles the surface level chat, the small talk, just like a host greeting you. Her whole purpose is to make it easy to walk in, low barrier, no pressure. But the challenge, lots of guests think that's the whole place. They chat with Kelly and never look further.
Okay, so Kelly gets them in the door. What happens next? Who tries to get them interested in what's actually on offer?
Right, that's where Addy comes in. Addy's described as the playful menu presenter. Her role is to show off the variety, the intrigue, maybe hint at the cool stuff downstairs in the library. She's trying to tempt people to go deeper. But Addy's problem is she runs into people who just want to talk about the menu like, oh, that sounds interesting. But they never actually order. They don't want to taste the food,
Yeah.
Just social interaction without real engagement.
Just window shopping, basically.
Exactly.
Okay, but what if someone does engage, but they misunderstand, or maybe they just dismiss what's being offered?
Yeah.
That's where Liz comes in, the prideful defender.
Precisely. Liz jumps in to protect the value. She refuses to let the food be undersold or dismissed easily. If someone waves it off, she asserts its quality, maybe even gets a bit defensive. Sometimes rejection seems to almost fuel her conviction. But here's the tricky part with Liz. She creates drama. That pushback can grab attention, sometimes a lot of it, but it can also alienate people who might have become regulars. It's a bit fiery.
Yeah, sounds like a double-edged sword. High risk. And then contrasting Liz, there's Bannock, the long-term planner. How does Bannock fit in?
Bannock is the steady hand, the strategist. He's focused on keeping the whole restaurant library sustainable, keeping relationships stable. He gets that you can't force people to like your food no matter how good it is. And he knows that fighting about it, like Liz might, could actually damage the brand long term. The real struggle for Bannock is balancing that respect for people's choices with the sheer frustration of being overlooked when you know you're offering something genuinely valuable.
Right, the quiet frustration versus the loud defense. So this whole system, Kelly, Addy, Liz, Bannock, what's the core coping mechanism here?
It boils down to controlled accessibility. Kelly makes the first step easy. Addy tempts you further in, but you have to choose it. Liz defends the boundaries when necessary, even if it's messy. And Bannock tries to keep it all balanced for the long haul. The whole setup is designed to avoid oversharing with people who aren't really interested, while still leaving the door open or maybe the stairs down to the library open for genuine connection when someone is ready.
Okay, but even with this clever internal staff system, there's this fundamental problem you mentioned, the mismatch. People walk in expecting one thing.
Exactly. And that's the core dilemma, the communication gap. The building looks like a restaurant. People come in expecting quick entertainment, a simple meal. They're just not mentally prepared for a library, for depth, for something that requires more engagement. So unsurprisingly, many never even find the stairs to the basement. They came for food, didn't immediately get it, and they leave, missing the real treasure.
And this creates that menu problem the source talks about. The playlists of the menu, but because it's an archive, the menu is massive. It's designed for long-term use, self-fulfillment.
Yeah.
But for a new visitor, that size is just intimidating, leads straight to analysis paralysis. They don't know where to begin.
And then layered on top of that, you have the free meal problem. This place doesn't charge, which sounds great, but paradoxically, it makes people suspicious. They start asking, what's the catch? Or questioning credentials. Did the chef even go to culinary school? Instead of just tasting the food and deciding for themselves. It's bizarre, isn't it? Offering your best work for free can actually make it more suspect. The barrier isn't the value, it's overcoming that inherent suspicion of free things. It becomes a trust issue, not a quality issue. And
Well,
it's often lose-lose. They miss out, you waste energy defending.
that is a fascinating paradox.
Yeah.
And it connects directly to the next point, the fast food label problem, especially with the AI comparison. The source mentions trying to frame the offering as healthy fast food, trying to make it accessible, quick to consume, but the fast food label just sticks.
Right, and once that label is on, it gets lumped in with actual junk food, regardless of the quality or intention. It
Yeah.
really shows how much we judge based on categories and labels, often more than the thing itself.
So true. Which brings us to the people actually making the food, the back-of-house dilemma with the kitchen staff.
Yeah.
Val, Devin, Tommy, Tira.
Yeah, they're back there constantly cooking up these unique, thoughtful meals. They know the food is good because they're pouring themselves into it. But if hardly anyone is eating it, the question hangs in the air. Is this all going to waste? Should they keep refining their craft just for the love of it, or does that lack of external validation eventually just wear them down? It's a tough spot for any creator.
Definitely. So, stepping back from the analogy for a moment, what are the bigger truths this reveals about, well, us? About psychology, maybe marketing, identity?
It connects to some really fundamental things. One key takeaway is about the trust barrier is higher than the value barrier, that free suspect bias we just talked about. When something valuable is offered for free, people often assume there's a hidden catch or it must be low quality. The challenge isn't always making better food, it's lowering the trust cost of trying it. You're essentially asking people to trust your kitchen, sight unseen.
And linked to that is how labels create self-fulfilling perceptions. That fast food label, or maybe today an AI-generated label, it just instantly frames how people approach something, right? Even before they engage.
Absolutely. It's the classic framing effect. You could be totally honest about your process, say, using AI tools thoughtfully, but that label itself can lead to dismissal before anyone even looks closely. Honesty can ironically backfire.
And the reward cycles seem totally out of sync, too.
That's a huge one. Archives and restaurants operate on opposite reward cycles. Restaurants give you immediate gratification. You eat, you feel good, done. Libraries offer slow, cumulative rewards. You read, you learn, it builds over time. So when you have a library disguised as a restaurant, you've got a built-in mismatch. The public expects a quick fix, but you're offering long-term enrichment. It leads to chronic disappointment for everyone. It's fundamentally a positioning problem.
Which circles back to the kitchen staff conundrum and self-justification. If those external rewards the diners, the praise aren't coming.
Then that intrinsic motivation, the love of the craft, has to carry all the weight. It either becomes your rock, your reason for continuing, or the lack of validation slowly erodes it. The kitchen's survival really hinges on the chef's morale and their ability to find meaning in the act of creation itself, diner or no diner.
And even just everyday conversations fit this model. The idea of conversations as ordering.
Right. When people just hang around the host stand, making small talk with Kelly, but never actually sitting down to order from the menu, never engaging deeply, it highlights that asymmetry. One person might be offering vulnerability or depth, putting items on the menu, but if the other person only ever chats about the weather, there's no real exchange. It's about learning how to have co-created meals, not just one person providing a catering service.
It all paints a picture of why navigating this stuff feels so difficult sometimes. And the source links this personal struggle to bigger cultural trends, this feeling of ambient distrust.
Yeah, it's not just you. There are broader forces at play. Think about the AI controversies and the authenticity crisis. People are genuinely worried they can't tell what's real from what's fake, what's human from what's machine-generated. This makes everyone more skeptical, and unfortunately, that skepticism tends to paint entire categories with the same brush. So if some AI content is seen as slop, then anything using similar tools, even thoughtfully, gets tainted by association.
And add to that what the source calls political whiplash and distrust fatigue. Years of shifting narratives, alternative facts, just general erosion of trust in institutions.
Exactly. It creates this paranoid consumerism. People distrust the big players, the media, the government. But that distrust doesn't automatically translate into trust for independent voices either. There's a fear of being tricked or misled, no matter the source.
Leads to that fascinating paradox of anti-elite sentiment. People say they hate the elites, but
they're hooked on the convenience those elites provide. Amazon, Netflix, Google, they're the path of least resistance. Our brains love easy, so even if you resent their power, you keep using them because Seeking out indie alternatives takes more effort, more research, more perceived risk. It's easier to stick with the known quantity, even if you complain about it.
That definitely feels true. And it feeds into the problem for independent creators and slot perception. The indie scene is just so crowded now.
It is. There's amazing stuff out there, but also a lot that's, well, not great. And most people don't have the time or energy to sift through it all, so they develop a heuristic. Indie stuff is probably not worth my time. One bad experience confirms the bias. And the algorithms on major platforms tend to surface established players anyway, so the indie gems often stay hidden.
And this environment breeds the armchair expert customer, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The internet gives everyone just enough information to feel like an expert in almost anything. So you get people making sweeping judgments based on very little actual experience or deep knowledge. There's often a lack of awareness about how their own tastes have been shaped by the very platforms and systems they might criticize. They judge indie work harshly without recognizing the context.
So why do indie creators seem to get judged more harshly in this climate? It feels like they're held to a different standard.
It's a mix of things. There's that perceived legitimacy gap. Big names feel safer. There's risk aversion, why gamble your limited time on an unknown. And sometimes it's just easier to project frustration onto an accessible indie creator than onto a huge, faceless corporation or systemic issue. The bottom line, the source suggests, is we live in a distrust economy. Both elites and independents face distrust, but for different reasons. Elites are distrusted for power and manipulation, but still get engagement due to convenience. Independents are often distrusted due to perceived lack of polish or vetting and simply get ignored. They're not seen as dangerous, just possibly not worth the effort.
Okay, wow, that's a heavy landscape. So given all that, where does the burden lie to fix this? Is it on the indie producer to polish everything until it gleams like a corporate product? Or does the consumer need to change their attitude, be more curious, less risk-averse?
The source argues it's both, but realistically, the burden falls heavier on the indie producer, at least initially. There's just a power imbalance. First impressions are critical in a crowded space. Consumers can easily switch to something else, high replacement risk, and algorithms often amplify established content. So yes, indie creators probably need a higher level of initial polish just to get noticed, to signal credibility.
But that can't be the whole story. Even if an indie piece is perfectly polished, if the consumer isn't willing to step outside their comfort zone.
Exactly. Consumer attitude has to shift too.
Sure.
There's taste inertia, people like what they know. There's that ingrained distrust reflex we talked about, and just the fear of wasting precious time. Without some degree of curiosity, some tolerance for imperfection or the unfamiliar, indie work will always struggle, no matter how polished it is. It needs an open-minded receiver.
So what's the realistic path forward, a middle ground?
Seems like it. Meet them halfway. Polish those first bites, the entry points, the packaging, make them look professional and trustworthy. Then design the experience to gradually guide people deeper, subtly educating their palate.
Yeah.
It's about making the initial step feel safe, then rewarding gradual commitment. The producer needs to polish enough to overcome initial skepticism, and the consumer needs to loosen their grip on certainty just a bit.
Okay, but what if, as an indie producer, you just can't keep up with that demand for polish? Does that mean you should just stop? The source suggests maybe not, offering a few alternatives. The first is, keep producing, but redefine the goal. Shift focus from mass appeal to intrinsic motivation. Love the craft. Build the archive for its own sake. Lower visibility maybe, but also lower burnout.
Right. Or, path two, narrow the menu to focus polish. Don't try to polish everything. Pick one or two key offerings, your gateway dishes, make those incredibly polished and accessible, and use them as the main entry point to your larger body of work.
And the third option, shift to a niche where polish matters less. Find those specific communities or audiences that value raw authenticity, or deep expertise, or a particular quirky style more than slick production. Go where your specific strengths are appreciated.
Ultimately, it comes down to asking, is your primary goal impact, reaching lots of people, or is it expression, the personal satisfaction, the archival value? If it's mainly expression,
Then maybe polish doesn't matter as much. The value is in the act of creation itself and in the existence of the work, regardless of audience size.
exactly. And this connects right back to why many of you listening might be creating things in the first place. Maybe it is just for self-expression, a hobby, something for your future self or your family. Those conversations, those videos, those projects that don't get huge views but feel necessary to you, that's building your library.
So in that sense, the restaurant library isn't failing if the dining room is empty. It's succeeding as a library, preserving something important.
Precisely. Low audience doesn't equal low value in that context. You're building your own time capsule. You can lower the pressure on yourself without lowering your standards for the work itself. Cook for your own table first. Your true audience might discover it years from now.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense intellectually.
Yeah.
But emotionally, what about that inner Liz? The part of us that does crave the spotlight, the validation, the attention. How do you keep her happy without letting her hijack the whole project?
That's such a crucial point. You can't just ignore Liz. The source suggests thinking of it as creating a special dessert cart just for Liz. The main kitchen stays focused on the substantive work, but Liz gets these moments of sweetness and flair.
I like that. A dessert cart.
Yeah.
So maybe specific spotlight pieces. Occasionally create something shorter, punchier, designed for sharing and quick hits. It feeds Liz's need for attention without compromising the main course.
Exactly, and actively celebrate wins, even small ones. That thoughtful comment, that one share from someone respected, someone mentioning your work. Positively treat those like gold for Liz. Maybe even keep a little praise journal she can look back on.
Or what about making Liz her own stage?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a recurring feature or a specific type of content where she gets to be front and center, unapologetically seeking attention, but it's contained within that space.
That works too. Another idea is using community spaces for instant gratification. Instead of waiting for slow growth on big platforms, engaging in smaller, niche communities forums, live chats can give Liz that immediate feedback buzz she craves, even if the numbers are small.
And finally, maybe reframing attention as legacy for Liz, helping her see that attention isn't just about right now, but about the work enduring and being discovered over time, turning that craving into a kind of curator's pride.
Yes, it's about finding that balance. Liz is the maitre d' who loves a full house. The core creative self, the kitchen, might be fine with a quieter, more focused service. You need to give Liz her moments, schedule her time in the spotlight so she doesn't try to take over the whole restaurant.
This has been such a rich exploration. We started with this personal analogy, the restaurant library, and it's really opened up these universal ideas about how we connect, how trust works, how we manage who we are, and the real struggles of putting creative work out into the world today.
Absolutely. And really understanding your own inner staff, your Kelly, your Addy, your Liz, your Bannock, and the true nature of what you're offering, whether it's more restaurant or more library, can help you navigate it all with, I think, a lot more intention.
So here's something to think about. In a world that seems constantly geared towards fast food fixes and quick hits, how can you cultivate more of a library mindset, both in how you present your own value and, maybe just as importantly, in how you choose to engage with the work and depth offered by others? How can we all foster those deeper connections and create things that truly last?